Hi, and welcome to Always Bring a Book. On today's episode, I sit down with J.W. Ocker, who writes spooky travel guides and horror novels. We talk about his newest book, Don't Go There, a tour of the world's most sinister spots, which just came out on July 14th. We also talk about the Bermuda Triangle, obsession, and spooky traditions. I'll play a clip from the new book and then roll the interview. Thanks for listening.
Manchac Swamp, Witchery in the Water. Location, St. John the Baptist Parish, Louisiana, USA. Size, 200 square miles. Notable resident, Aunt Julia Brown, infamous for witch ghost, superfog, hurricanes, and serial killers. Swamps are the worst of all worlds when it comes to dangerous environments. They're wet enough to drown you as dead as any ocean, dense enough to disappear you without a trace as much as any forest. They can get hot enough to burn you crispy as any desert, and cold enough to freeze you stiff as any tundra. They contain creatures deadly enough to kill you fast as any jungle, and they're as disease-ridden as the most crowded city. In fact, there is very little that could make these places more terrifying than they are already. You'd have to go supernatural, I think. Like maybe a swamp that's been cursed by a witch? Like maybe Manchac Swamp in Louisiana. Manchac Swamp is a strip of marshland about 30 miles northwest of New Orleans in the parish of St. John the Baptist. It covers hundreds of thousands of acres between Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas and is similar to many of the swamps in the state. Tall cypress and tupelo trees hold up the sky and shade the shorter black willow and palmetto trees. Various species of swamp grass accent the scummy waters. Hiding and hunting in that vegetable labyrinth are all manner of beasties, alligators and cottonmouths, nutria and muskrats, and an expansive variety of fish and birds and bugs. Much of its lore is typical for the area too, including the rougarou, also known as the loup-garou, a werewolf-like creature imported from the spook tales of French settlers. The roup-garou prowls the swamps and surrounding towns of the state, preying on unfaithful Catholics and misbehaved children.
Today, I am joined by bestselling and Edgar Award-winning author J.W. Ocker. He's the author of spooky travel guides, children's books, and horror novels. And his latest book, Don't Go There, explores some of the world's most infamous and unsettling destinations around the world and comes out in just over a month on July 14th. J.W., welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
So, like I said, your new book, Don't Go There, takes readers to some of the world's most notorious and unsettling destinations around the world. What was the original idea behind the book, and what can readers expect when they pick it up?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of a little bit vaguer than my typical books. Like when I write books like this, it's pretty concrete what it's about. So like cryptids is in the title. Cults in the title. Cursed objects in the title. This one doesn't have a thing in the title because the thing is a lot vaguer.
Yeah.
We were trying to find spots that, large swaths of the planet, not just like haunted houses or UFO hotspots, that had like overlapping and large quantities of lore. Like for some reason, they seem to be magnets for all kinds of stories. So, right, you can have a place that's a UFO hotspot and a cryptid flap and have ghosts and have serial killers all in one little space, one area. And those were the kinds of places that kind of drew me for this book. It started with this concept. Ivan T. Sanderson was this, he was this researcher and paranormal researcher. He invented the term cryptozoology. He got obsessed in the 60s and 70s with this idea of vile vortices. And vile vortices are, he was inspired by the Bermuda Triangle, how that's a classic location where overlapping lore and stories kind of just accrue around this one place. And he figured there must be more of them. And he kind of mapped out this idea that there's 12, I believe, vile vortices all across the planet, all on a grid. So all kind of mapped out perfectly. Like, spots on the planet that just accumulate more lore, whether they're weak spots in the dimensions or whatever they are. He never really explained them. He just explained how he found them. I mean, he took that theory pretty far. He was on like the Dick Cavett show with Lucille Ball, like this globe tucked under his arm with all the vile vortices mapped out.
I'm picturing like the pins with yarn connecting them.
Exactly, right? Exactly, right? A crazy board. But for him though, the spots were like, different areas of the sea, giant monoliths. For me, though, I wanted to find places in that spirit, but again, just had lots of lore. Like it'd be places you could dedicate an entire book to if you wanted to, because there's just so much going on there, and the story's
Right.
so vast and branches out in so many different ways. So that's kind of how it went. A little, again, a lot vaguer. I still don't have a concrete like summation or uh pitch for this book yet, even though it's like you said, it's out imminently.
Coming out in a month. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like it's places with lots of stuff happening, I guess.
Yeah. So with some of your other books, you've traveled to the places, right? You like stayed in Salem for a month. You traveled around New England and went to the places. But I have to assume that you didn't visit the Bermuda Triangle to write this, right? Or probably a lot of the locations in this book. So what was the writing process or research process like for this one when you couldn't physically maybe be in all 30 places?
So I visited about a third of them,
Wow.
despite the title.
Did you not read the title of the book? Yeah.
I know. I just it's a problem. It's a problem. It's an imperative statement I didn't obey. And so that was part of it. I had to go to these places to see them. And I'll guarantee you, most people that have been to the Bermuda Triangle, they just don't realize it. It's such a heavy traffic pathway. I went to school I did my undergrad in Tampa, Florida, Tampa Clearwater, and I've flown through the Bermuda Triangle multiple times because it's like
and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, came out the other end somehow. So that was number one. Again, most of my books, if I can't travel for them, I don't want to do them. Like I don't. I love books that are just accumulations of lore and history, and I live off those books. But for me, I'm very selfish as a writer, and if it's not an opportunity for me to travel or meet people or to get something beyond a book out of the book project, I kind of don't want to do it. So
Sure.
travel is huge. And then after that, it was research. It was just your classic roll your sleeves up, get into newspapers, old magazines, get into books that tell more of a story than I could in the space I had, and just read, read, read. I average about, I'd say 15 to 20 books for every book I write. And that doesn't count like articles and newspapers. It's really, because this book especially is like a summary, kind of more like a superficial summary of all these places, right? They're an article each, they're essays. But I need to know a lot in order to make a summary of a place, kind of. So that's the process. It's going there and then doing all kinds of research, and then writing comes last somehow.
That's amazing. And this book covers so many unique locations. Can you give us a little sneak peek of, some of the places? Is there any one specific one maybe one of the ones that you visited that really jumps out at you that you want to tell folks about?
Yeah. There's a few. There's so many. Probably there's a lot of obscure places in here because again, this is such a vague idea. The big ones are in there that you've heard of, right? The Bermuda Triangle is in here, but the story of the Bermuda Triangle I've never heard told before, ever in my life. Like the real story. So that's kind of what ended up happening. Is this book became the story, not the true stories, but the stories of these locations. Even if you don't believe in ghosts or UFOs or paranormals or serial killers, you still like. These places became special for a reason, and that story itself is turned out to be the most fascinating story of them all. Like UFO stories, as you probably know, they're kind of all the same, right? You see lights in the sky, you get taken to a craft, you get a physical,
Probe, etc. Yeah,
exactly. So no matter where they are, the same. Kind of cryptid flaps too, kind of like you see something and then it disappears. So the individual stories are kind of typical, but once you put them all together and figure out how this thing got so infamous. So Bermuda Triangle's in there, the Suicide Forest in Japan is in there, the Valley of the Headless Men in Canada I was fascinated by. This is a hard to get to valley in Western Canada that is notorious for finding the headless skeletons of usually miners and prospectors within them. And there are stories of, prehistoric creatures there and disappearing peoples and crime, and all centered in this beautiful, very, very much not well-known valley that you can only get to certain times of the year.
Interesting.
So that was a big one for me. But again, it's Lautner in China. There's so many places I had no idea about going into this. I knew the big ones. Like I knew, again, Bermuda Triangle. I knew Centralia, Pennsylvania. Salton Sea. That's one I keep bringing up a lot because that story it's the only story in the entire book. Salton Sea is out in Southern California. Only story in the entire book that has zero paranormal around it. And it is the most interesting story in the book, I think, somehow, despite all that. Because it's an accidental lake, and it became this resort that everybody from Bing Crosby to Frank Sinatra were at. And then it became this hellish wasteland because it was basically a lake full of chemicals at the end of the day, and still is today. But it's become it's the largest inland water source in Southern California. Lots of migrating birds still go there, even though they also often die in mass. But it's so important that if it goes away, Southern California could sink with it. But it's also you don't want it around because it's just this stinking morass of like the shores of it are white, but it's not sand. It's all tiny fish bones, for instance.
Oh my
It's just
God.
exactly right. So it's this
I will
place.
stick to the title on this one. I'm not going to go to this place. It sounds horrible.
I went there, and I literally misjudged. Like I was like, oh, there's the water. I was like running to it like a little kid at the beach, running to the water, and my
Through
feet
fish bones.
exactly, which you can't really tell until you look closely. Yeah, but then I immediately sunk down a foot into this muck. It's horrendous smell. It's chemical-laced muck. I couldn't get out. Fortunately, I had a friend with me, and he pulled me out. But I had to leave my boots there. My Timberlands are still there on the shores of.
Oh my God. They're now part of the lore.
There are now, yeah, artifacts of desolation, right? They see some poor sap's empty black boots out there sitting in the fish bones.
That's
but that
so
was
funny.
one of my most. Again, I've heard the Salton Sea all my life. I saw the Val Kilmer movie. I know like the Mad Max kind of reputation it had. But digging into it, and we've sunk, or the federal and state governments have sunk billions of dollars trying to fix this place, and they just can't. And the latest twist on the story is there might be a giant mother lode of lithium underneath it, which is one of the important elements in batteries for electric devices.
Right. Yeah.
Everything from like laptops to electric cars. So maybe there's another chapter about to be written of like that will also go negative because everything around the Salton Sea goes negative. It'll be a tale of greed and misfortune and problems. So that's
Tesla's going to go in there looking for lithium, and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I can't believe it doesn't have ghost stories. It must have some ghost stories around it that I couldn't find, but it is again a place. I would honestly say don't go there. It is gross, but also it felt like an adventure. Like there's ghost towns we're wandering through, and like it was exactly as you would hope it would be. Versus like Centralia, Pennsylvania, which these days isn't that's the town it's a ghost town built on a 100-year-old fire underground. These days, I've been going to that place since the early 2000s, and these days it's gentled a lot. It's like almost ready for redevelopment, I think.
That's funny.
So like versus that place that has a massive, reputation that might not be as deserved as other places.
I feel like you've spent years writing about these strange and spooky places, kind of like a morbid Rick Steves, almost like, hey, you should go you should go visit these places. It's almost like a travel book, but this one is very much like an anti-travel book. Like, why, after doing so many of the other ones where it was kind of like, I went to these places and like you could too, why a anti-travel book with this one?
It's just like, so I am a travel writer, like officially, I guess. And it took me a long time to accept that, but I am. And I always got very, I always get annoyed by most travel, not Rick Steves. He's amazing. But like, I get bored by a lot of travel writers and travel hosts who are like, telling the stories of these places and have these amazing adventures in front of you. And meanwhile, they have, a crew of fixers behind them and like all this money and like everybody preparing the way. And it looks like they're having this grand adventure. And I'm just like, that's not all travel is. Like travel, isn't just exotic cocktails at new resorts on hard to get to islands. The world is a harsh place. It's a place the world isn't made for us. Like, right. We pretend like the planet is hospitable because it is compared to the harsh vacuum of space, right? This place is like a paradise compared to that. But really, everything in this world is out to kill you. We could die in 3 seconds for any reason, disease, location, falls, breaks, all these things. And I wanted to really hit on that the world, despite us like shrinking it down, like with like the digital age and transportation, is still a giant, scary place where death is imminent and you will die, obviously, but like and not just freak occurrences, like occurrences that make sense. Like you stand too close to the edge of something, you're going to fall off. So I kind of want to dig into that of like, we're especially with like social media, like everybody's trying to rush to places and get the photos and say, look, I'm here. And I want to say, hey, don't forget, this world hates us.
Yeah.
We're only here because, whatever. We're only alive, I should say, because of, we just haven't gotten unlucky yet. So that I wanted to go a little bit. And again, it's a little bit facetious, but also not. Like a good example is the Paris catacombs, which I know you've been to. Like that's a tourist destination. Millions of tourists go in there.
Oh, big time. Yeah. You literally exit through the gift shop. Like
exactly right. It's good point. But that's only like a small percentage of the actual Paris catacombs. The tourist, that thing goes for miles and miles, and there have been deaths and disappearances and all kinds of stories in the catacombs as a whole versus this one tip of the iceberg that we all know and those of us who are morbid love. So again, that's a great example of some of this place is fun, has a gift shop, and then the rest of it is out to kill you if you just happen to stumble down the wrong pathway full of skulls, right? So that's the idea. But it's a little bit facetious because, like you said, I went to 30% of these, and I almost had to give a disclaimer in the book where I'm like, you can die. There are body counts everywhere to all these places, just like most places, but they are also a lot of fun. Like, I'm not a big adventurer. Like, I'm not like, I'm
I beg to differ based on everything we've been talking about.
but not in the sense of like you put a backpack on, you climb a rugged mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm very much a soft guy, and these places you can get to just by car and by a little bit of like just doing it, right? Just doing it. So you know all the places in this book you can go to, but there have actually been deaths and disappearances and bad tragedies of all stripes at this place. Not to mention the paranormal. If you're paranormally inclined, that's a whole new level of storytelling in each of these places.
After visiting so many, not just of these places, but places in general in this kind of this world, what do you think makes a place scary? Like, is there a like special ingredient that like a location has to feel like cursed or haunted or dangerous? Like you mentioned, like there have been deaths there, but like, have you through all your travels kind of figured out what makes a place scary?
That's a good question. So it's a few things, right? There's an aesthetic quality that kind of starts it, right? And again, most of nature is scary if you're out there by yourself, say, right? Forests are scary and the ocean is scary and ice is scary. Like, skiing is terrifying if there wasn't like a nice chalet there that you can get warm and have a hot toddy. The rest of
Yeah.
it is just downhill mountains and death, right? So, there has to be an aesthetic quality to make it kind of spooky, right? The catacombs, if they weren't lined with skulls, people would probably not be just taking tours of, concrete tunnels, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's that aesthetic quality. Then it starts with local lore. Local lore has to be added on top of that aesthetic where, people start talking about it. They start making up stories or they start experiencing things and communicating those stories, right? So then that gathers. And then once that gets to a certain amount of momentum, the researchers come in, right? People like me, unfortunately. And we kind of like categorize and organize it and communicate it to a wider audience, right? And I think that's kind of how it happens. And that's literally the story of the Bermuda Triangle. It started with one article by this AP writer in the 50s in Florida who wasn't even trying to point out anything paranormal. And he wasn't even trying to point out anything. The only reason he used the area that we call the Bermuda Triangle today is because it was his backyard. He was making this point that, 1950s was a time of big transportation evolution, right? Suddenly we had
Yeah.
trains, planes, not suddenly planes, we suddenly had planes everywhere and the automobile was everywhere and the Great American Road Trip was happening. And his point was like, hey, listen, we're making the world smaller with travel, but it's still big. People disappear all the time. Entire planes, squadrons, ships disappear just in my backyard. And he listed a bunch of examples. And then over time, that evolved into this paranormal triangle and stuff. Once, again, folklorists came in and
Yeah. Yeah.
and less shadier people and started creating a story out of that. When his point was just, hey, this happens everywhere. Look at my backyard, for example. So I think that is the chain of events, the provenance of how a place becomes that way. And then, of course, on top of that, there is actual tragedies that happen, disappearance and deaths, right? Anywhere that disappearances or deaths happen, that place is, especially if there's more than one, that place is just going to automatically become a spooky location. Just by like cut out the rest of that, locals, aesthetic, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That's enough to like launch a place into our imagination.
So like you just mentioned, the world is so big and, even though because of travel and things like the internet, like it can feel small. So there's roughly 30 locations in this book. Like, was there any that you needed to cut? Like, was anything like, oh, like I want to put this in, but this book can't be 1,000 pages long?
No, but not because there's not lots more places. There is lots more places. No, just because of the process. So the process for this book was I wanted to divide it up into types of locales. So forests is one, snowscapes, deserts. So I had preconceived categories, right? And there's 6 or 7. So if you break that down, there's like 5 in each category. So I could only go so far anyway. So and because I was looking for very specific things, places with lots of lore, right? The top ones definitely bubbled up throughout that process pretty fast. But depending on your perspective, right? There's a million triangles that I couldn't put in the book, right?
Yeah.
Bermuda
Yeah.
Triangle's there, Bridgewater Triangle's there. You're a Massachusetts guy. Bridgewater Triangle's there, but I couldn't put in like the Glastonbury Triangle in Vermont. There's a triangle in Nevada that did get in there, but I couldn't use the Devil's Sea out in Japan because I just ran out of. I had enough ocean places and I had enough, spooky triangles that I just couldn't put them all in there.
It's an interesting guardrail to put on yourself. Like yeah.
Yeah, and you have to. I do this with all those types of books, all my essay style books, where I have to be like, I need to set the parameters so specifically that I'm not all over the place. I don't have. It's not like these. These books usually take me about a year to write and research and travel to. And if I didn't have those guardrails, like you say, it could take me 5 years to write a book
Right,
like that, for
right.
sure.
That's really interesting. So I want to move into kind of like my last question here, which is around online horror. And most of your books revolve around like real world places, like we've been talking about, that have histories and legends and lore attached to them. But we're living through this really interesting moment right now where entirely online myths, like you know what I mean, like creepypasta things like Slender Man or the Backrooms can go like viral in a matter of days. It doesn't take 20 years of lore to make it work. And sometimes they're even getting adapted into these big movies like we're seeing right now. And, how do you think the internet has changed the way that, myths and folklore are created and shared?
Oh, I love it. I love this topic so much. I actually did an entire section of my cursed objects book where I focused on digital cursed objects.
Mm.
So this kind of idea is fascinating to me. I think it's doing two things. One is pushing out the old guard. So the old guard is like classic cryptozoology, classic ufology, stuff that like, we're in 2026 now. We still don't have definitive proof of any of
Like
ghosts,
a
aliens.
Bigfoot or, yeah,
Yeah, we don't have
yeah.
Bigfoot's body. We don't have a UFO in in the middle of Times Square. We don't have these things, right? And so at some point we have to ask ourselves, with the proliferation of cameras, why don't we, right?
Right.
Or at some point we're telling the same stories over and over and over. I mean, how many Bigfoot stories do you need, right? And so what I love about the younger generations doing this with digital is, first off, they can fake any of this with digital, right? So they make it almost obsolete with drones, right? UFO spotting is almost obsolete because back in the day, the evidence was it moved in ways that no plane, these lights moved in ways no plane could. But now we have drones that can move in every way, right? They can make dragons in the sky and stuff.
I was just
So,
going to say that. Remember that? Like you saw like drones looking like King Kong climbing
exactly.
you know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, and then of course AI and like Photoshop already made us like not trust like video and all the classic evidence that we used for our lore before. All that's not trustworthy. So what the new generations are doing is pushing that out. Like you go on TikTok and find like blurry images of like things running around all the time. It's like not very believable. But they're making brand new ways to be scared, right?
Yeah.
That backrooms idea is so modern and so enchanting and so true in a way. Like we've all been in those liminal spaces before without realizing they're liminal spaces, without realizing the how potential it is for how scary it is and what a great storytelling medium that is. So the kids, I'll just call them the kids because I'm old, they're coming up with new ways to kind of make stories. Slender Man started out as an image. So did Backrooms, but Slender Man started out as an image. And I think grew and grew and grew and became bigger and bigger and bigger. The only problem with the digital age, I think, when it comes to that, besides it, so the beauty is it's making brand new, fresh, interesting lore, like great stuff. The downside is the consumption is so fast that it might not have the legs to stick around, right? Bigfoot research and hunting has been around, you say since Bigfoot was named in the 50s, but it was slow, right? There's time for lots of flaps to happen. It's time to get it ingrained in culture. It's time for him to become Bigfoot to become Mickey Mouse, right? To become an icon that's like on our bumper stickers and our keychains and stuff. And digital artifacts don't have that amount of time, right? They don't.
Yeah, it's
they don't
always on to the next. Yeah.
always on to the next until somebody else picks it up as a toy. I know Backrooms has like relatively long life, but it's like a decade. It's a very very small in the realm of folklore. That's usually hundreds of years old. So that consumption cycle doesn't allow us to luxuriate or enjoy it. I think as much as we've been as I've grown up hearing about the Bermuda Triangle. It's been decades of enjoyment because of that.
They did an
Whereas
episode about it in Rocco's Modern Life. I still remember that. I think that was probably the
yes,
first time I ever heard of it.
yeah, Mulder and Scully went there. Scooby Doo went there, right? They all went there, and like with Backrooms, it's going to get to the point of parody really, especially on the internet or digital. We get to parody really fast, and then once parody happens, it kind of like it kind of cycles in on itself. So that's the only problem with it. But again, I love the fresh new ideas that come out of it, the new lore, because we're running out. We're running out. The world's getting more secular. The proof is just not happening. And we don't have excuses for the proof not happening anymore. So I think the new frontier is what can happen on digital for sure.
So you mentioned one of the things that you love about like the books that you've written is that you get to travel, and that's like a big part of it for you. You can't travel to the back rooms, right? You can't do those things, but it does seem like you're into it. So do you see is there a world in which you might write a book about kind of this type of folklore?
Yeah, I think so. I actually once tried to write a novel around at one point. It's never finished it. But yeah, I think there is an idea around this where you could try to. It's so funny to try to use something as archaic as a book to catalog.
Yeah, that's true.
Stories. No,
Yeah.
but it's like nice though. It's kind of beautiful because that's the only way it really gets permanence, right? We have books that have been around for 1,000 years the Wayback Machine doesn't catalog every single page, right? The Internet
Right.
Archive can't categorize everything. There's stuff that's just lost forever because it wasn't archived and categorized. So that would be a fascinating book, and it made me feel young again to kind of get into that, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, I would look forward to reading it. So, we only have a couple of minutes here, and I always end the episodes with a speed round. So instead of a longer conversation like we just had, I'm just gonna hit you with a couple of quick questions that you don't have to think about too much. Um, so I know you're a big Halloween guy, obviously. I think I read on your blog that you stretch it out over months. So,
Yeah.
what is your favorite Halloween tradition?
That's a good one. So it's the road trip. The autumn road trip is the best. I when I lived in the mid Atlantic, I'd take it to Salem. Now I live in Salem half the time. I take it to Sleepy Hollow, and just driving the back roads in the fall and hitting old haunts and hitting like it's to me is my favorite tradition. Period. Which is kind of a cheat because it's my favorite activity year
Period.
round. Road trips.
Travel. Yeah.
Exactly. But there's something about an autumn road trip that is unbeatable, especially in New England where we live. They're fantastic.
Got to get that leaf peeping in, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, side question then. Favorite restaurant in Salem?
Okay. So man, that's a good one. So I always end up at Rockefeller's.
Yep.
Not because it's the best, but because it's the best located. And there's all,
Well, you can people watch at the Bewitched statue, you know.
it is ideally suited to see people on Essex Street walk by. I'm always there. Favorite cocktail is I go to Lobster Shanty a lot for the hot and dirty pickle martini. Those two are my go-tos. But they have so many these days. They have so many good restaurants that like
Yeah, I'm
it
a
gets
flying
hard.
saucer guy myself, you know.
Oh yes, that's a great
Yes.
place. Great place. So that's kind of where I end up in my circuits.
Love it. If someone were to read Poe for the first time, where should they start?
You should start at pretty much where they start you in elementary school. You should start with this is the one just left me, the one where it's the heart underneath the boards.
Telltale Heart.
Telltale Heart. Start
Yeah.
there and the Raven. Those are the two pieces you need to kind of get his the width of his ideas. Those are the ones that are the primer for you.
Best horror movie in the last year.
Oh, so I mean it has so I saw both Obsessions and Backrooms the same week. Obsession is my favorite in a long time.
So good, so good. I know it's like everyone loves that for good reason. Like I've seen it
For good
twice
reason.
now. It was excellent. I am so excited to see what Kari Barker keeps doing.
Yes, and Backrooms is more my style because it's weird and out there. And Obsession is basically, it's almost
The monkey paw story. Yeah.
it's only done, but man, the action was so well, the direction was done so well. I don't remember the last time I felt that uncomfortable in a movie.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm a jaded old man, and it was I don't know that was so good. And I hate giving you an obvious answer, but it is the answer. I think right now.
Honestly, I would have been surprised if it was anything else. Like, and it's been a good year for horror.
It has.
All right, last one because I know we're at time, but a spooky place that you haven't visited yet but would love to.
Let's see, the spooky place I haven't visited yet but would love to. So I'm a big Halloween Town guy. So I've written a book about Salem, and my book about Sleepy Hollow.
I thought you were talking about the movie, by the way, like the Disney Halloween Town movie. I was like, interesting.
Well, actually, the town that they filmed it in is now a Halloween town because now they dressed it up just like that. It's out in Washington, but I've never been to Anoka, Minnesota, and that since the 50s has proclaimed itself as the Halloween capital of the world because they were the first one to ever do a civic parade dedicated to Halloween. So I don't think it's spooky in the classic sense, but I've always wanted to go to Anoka. It's one of those places you have to go to. It's not like you can swing by another trip because it's out in the middle of nowhere. So
you won't be doing the road trip there, the autumn road trip.
You have to put it right on your itinerary.
Yes.
And then as far as really spooky, and this is like a confession I have to make that I hate, but I have not done the Paris catacombs. I've done tons of catacombs across Europe, but for some reason, not for good reason, I just have never done the Paris catacomb. And if I die without doing that, I will have failed as a macabre traveler. So I have to get there at some point.
Well, it's not going anywhere, so you've got plenty of time. Well, thank you so much for making the time today. This is an awesome half an hour. I really love. I could chat about this kind of stuff all day.
Yes, blessed.
So we're obviously at all local indie bookstores in about a month. But is there anything else that we should expect from you besides this upcoming book?
Yeah, actually, so after Don't Go There comes out July 14th, my next book comes out in September 29th. So I have 2 books this year.
Wow.
And that's also fiction. This one's more of a conventional travelogue in that the entire book is about one thing: Sleepy Hollow, New York, a town completely themed and dedicated to the Headless Horseman. So that book comes out in September, and that one is, I've been trying to write this book for 10 years. 10 years I've been wanting to write this book, and I finally was able to sell it, get the time to go down there. And I went down there, I stayed down there, I interviewed everybody, I saw all the attractions, all the historical sites, I got to the bottom of the Sleepy Hollow story, and it's all in a book, and that comes out. It's perfect for a fall read if you get it 9th. So that's my next book after Don't Go There is
Oh my
Chasing the
God.
Headless-
I didn't even know about that. I'm so excited. I can't wait to read
Yeah.
that. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. It was awesome meeting you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for inviting me. This was great.
Thanks for listening to that episode, everyone. JW's book is out on shelves now, so run to your local indie and grab a copy. My recommendation this week is The Reverse Centaur's Guide to Life After AI, the new book from Cory Doctorow. A short, provocative guide to what's good, bad, and stupid about AI and the discourse around AI by the author of Enshittification. I found this one really interesting because it's not just, an anti-AI screed, which would honestly be totally fine by me. But Cory talks about it. He says he uses AI in his everyday work life, and he explains how he uses it and how he feels okay about it, and when it is okay and when it's not okay. And in typical Cory fashion, it's very, very well researched and well done, but also very funny. So it makes a really difficult topic very digestible. The book is short, so you can really get through this really quickly, but it also gives a really good background on everything if you're not really familiar with it. So it talks about, all the big players and the companies and the difference between generative AI and not. And it's really, really, really good. So I would go grab this. On next week's episode, I got to interview one of my favorite horror authors right now, Rachel Harrison. We talk about her upcoming book, Kiss, Slay, Replay, as well as a bunch of her other books. I love her entire catalog, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, thank you for listening.